5. We have a motion as amended. What is the will of the committee? Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Gelfand.
I'm totally in support of the resolves in this motion. I agree with the purpose of it completely. I am not in favor of the changes to the whereases. The first change takes the terminology colonization of the West Bank out and replaces it with occupation of Palestinian lands. I consider that language to be inflammatory and not factual. Clearly, the lands are disputed. They were won in a war where multiple countries attacked Israel.
Seriously?
And they fought back and took over the land. There's clearly a dispute about them now, but to call them Palestinian isn't exactly accurate either, because they were actually Syrian, if you're talking about the West Bank, before the '67 war. So there's a lot of debate about what that land is, who owns it, who ought to control it, etc. To use the words occupation or occupied territories and Palestinian lands, I don't think helps us get to the resolves, which I do agree with. Same thing is true on line 9, where it changes it from controversial to illegal. I don't think the settlements are illegal from the standpoint of the Israeli government. And the same thing is true on line 13, where it changes West Bank to occupied territories. So as written, I can support this motion. If the changes to the whereases were eliminated, I would be 100% supportive.
So basically, Mr. Gelfand, you're saying that you are happy with leaving the word colonization, and that you would be happy with leaving the word controversial, and that you would be happy with leaving the term West Bank.
Correct.
All right. Well, that's discussion on the amendment. Mr. Hall.
Yeah, so the United States was attacked by Japan, and we fought a war with them, and then we occupied them, and it was called an occupation, because that's what it was. And international law, the international community, the entirety of the way that this issue is discussed throughout the entire planet, except it seems somehow in the California Democratic Party, this is an occupation. And we should name it so that we can talk about it. Secondly, in terms of the question of legality, we are simply here reaffirming what has been the assertion both of the United Nations and the United States government under both Republican and Democratic administrations for decades. I just don't see why we should be behind the vast majority of international consensus about how to do it. I just worked very, very hard, and as did the authors and other interested parties, to try to come to some agreement around this. And what wasn't controversial was using the terms that the rest of the world uses to describe this situation. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank and just give a shout out to the people, all the people who worked out here in our little Camp David out in the hallway to try to move this forward. As I said, it would have been nicer if it had been more relaxed and over the course of weeks instead of minutes. But I with very much respect to my brother, who I also think is coming to this issue with good faith, I think that the language as proposed puts us in line with the way that the majority of the planet talks about this issue.
Right.
Any further discussion, Mr. Cordova?
Madam Chair, there's a man in this room who does know I'm going to call on him, but Howard Walensky sat on this committee for many years. And we've seen these resolutions come up many times. And he was able to work with the founder of the Arab American Caucus to where they would sit down and negotiate. If it's possible, Madam Chair, I would like to give a minute of my time and to hear from my brother, Howard Walensky, on his views on the resolution as amended.
I can tell you in one sentence, I would support the deal.
Hey, here we go. All right.
Madam Chair, Howard, which is the #1 film right now? You and I always have a discussion every week.
It's Fridays. I'll tell you tomorrow.
Okay, got it. Any additional comments from the committee?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Aggie?
I'm very impressed by the work that has been done today here. This is always a difficult issue, and there's always a lot of passion around it. And what is being done here is amazing. You know, a lot of times, and I think even today you said, you know, the good and the is the enemy of the perfect, or vice versa. Let's not get into that. And I understand what you're saying, but if we can get this to the floor, and if we can get this passed, we will have done an amazing thing. If we don't, if the people who crafted the original walk out of here and gather signatures, we will have done a very bad thing.
We have over 200. We don't want to go to the floor.
I urge that we pass this. I believe.
Thank
We worked it out, right,
Mr.
Andrew?
Gonzalez, and then
We worked
Mr.
it out,
Hanna
right?
will have the last word.
Right.
Yes, to the authors, I just have a question, if I may, Madam Chair.
Of course.
And that is that the whereas clauses very much point out the provocative actions of the Trump administration in regards to moving the U.S. Embassy to Tel Aviv, to Jerusalem, really taking a one-sided approach on the issue of Israel and settlement. And I'm just confused why the authors did not add, you know, when you start off saying that we're opposing the Trump's administration's dangerous provocations, then the resolved clause have nothing about us, you know, as a party condemning the Trump provocations. So I'm just kind of, I'm looking at the two further be it resolved, and I'm just wondering why we didn't have a third, you know, further be it resolved that the CDP rejects and condemns the Trump's administration's current provocative actions and counterproductive actions towards Middle East peace. I'm just kind of confused as to why that isn't.
David?
Is that a rhetorical question?
No, it's a real question.
All right, real
David can
question,
answer.
so someone give a real answer.
There you go,
I'll
David.
tell you from my perspective, I just used the language from the authors originally and tried to make it acceptable to me. I think this author should really respond to the question.
Frankly, you're only allowed 2 resolve clauses. You're allowed 400 words in our original, which we paid attention to every single word, added up to 399, I believe.
That answers the question.
You know, so now it is a little bit shorter. If we were starting over again, maybe we could stick that in somewhere. But I think having that criticism in the whereas clause of the Trump administration is pretty strong, and I think the message will go.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Hanna?
Don't go so far. You don't have any, unless some,
Plenty of time.
well, we already heard from Howard, he speaks,
A lot of people here.
all right, but, all right, go back, please. So, I want to understand, so if the committee passes this substitute amendment, then you will be satisfied with this amendment and will not propose your original amendment? Or not
Original resolution.
The original resolution, yes.
Yeah, that's what our caucus decided, yes.
Okay, and that means that if somebody comes up to you on the floor and says, I'd like to propose the original, that you will rise up and speak on the floor in opposition to that effort and urge everybody to accept this substitute.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think anybody could rise up and say that without having 300 signatures, right? Which is what we were mobilizing, organizing and mobilizing to do.
Well,
But
they might try.
oh, okay.
We're in agreement, yes.
But
We're good with that.
That's our
yes.
understanding. Yes, that's our agreement.
Yes.
And, all right, okay, thanks.
So on the motion as amended, do we have a motion and a second? Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against? The ayes have it.
All
Congratulations.
right, right on. Very good. All right.
So that number 5 is going to be a substitution